Adolf Hitler is giving a speech in a beer hall in Munich. Right behind him in the column, a bomb has been hidden away, and it is about to go off. The German carpenter and Nazi opponent Georg Elser has planned this moment for months. He knew Hitler would be here tonight. He knew when exactly the Führer would give a speech. Elser installed explosives with a time fuse. At exactly 9:20 p.m., his bomb is supposed to detonate. The explosion causes the entire ceiling above the podium to collapse. 63 people get injured, 8 die. But Hitler isn't one of them. He left the beer hall earlier than expected at 9:07 p.m. Georg Elser failed. But this was just one of many attempts to assassinate Hitler. One of almost 40. Today we take a look at some of the most spectacular plans to rid the world of the Nazi leader. Why did they all fail? How did he keep getting away? Was Hitler just that lucky? Or was there more to it?
Interesting.
This is Henning von Tresckow, a first general staff officer in the Wehrmacht. At first, he's a supporter of Hitler when he seizes power in 1933. But that will soon change. Tresckow's turning point comes in 1941, when Germany attacks the Soviet Union. He thinks Hitler's invasion is military madness. He thinks they will lose the war. But Tresckow also has moral concerns. He knows about the mass murder of Jewish people. He knows what the regime is doing. A resolve forms within him. He's convinced that this mad dictator must be stopped at all cost. And in spring of 1943, Tresckow makes his move. He manages to persuade his commander-in-chief Günther von Kluge to invite Hitler to Smolensk in the Soviet Union. Here, Tresckow is stationed, and the Führer agrees. On March the 13th, 1943, he makes a...
I'm gonna cause controversy, Chad, because I never restudied that part in history. We studied more of the war. I always wondered, why kill him? Like, in a time of war, isn't there like needs for like manual labor and shit like that, or whatever the fuck? Like why kill them? Well, it's a question. It's a question. It's not like you think that I know something that makes me like ask something like that's bad. It's a flat out question. So they already whatever. Yeah, he was doing a cleansing.
His flight from Vinnitsa to his headquarters in East Prussia. At lunch, Tresckow asks Lieutenant Colonel Heinz Brandt, who is traveling with Hitler on the plane, for a favor. Brandt is to deliver a package containing 2 bottles of Control cognac to a friend of Trescow's in East Prussia. Tresckow tells him that he lost a bet. Instead of 2 bottles of alcohol, however, the package contains a bomb with a detonator. Tresckow wants to feign an airplane accident. His co-conspirator Fabian von Schlabrendorf secretly activates the time pencil and then hands the package to Brandt. The plane takes off at around 3 p.m. On board are Hitler, Brandt, and the bomb. The bomb is supposed to explode within an hour. Schlabrendorf set the timer by crushing a glass vial filled with a corrosive liquid in the time pencil. The airplane should crash at about the height of
no. Some bullshit
Hitler
happened.
lands in his headquarters unscathed. Brandt had packed the package in the cold cargo hold. The acid detonator had frozen.
So the guy was a retard, is what you're saying. For it to blow up one passenger and it has fuel, it'll blow up anyway.
Immediately calls Heinz Brandt and tells him that he accidentally gave him the wrong package. The next day, Schlabrendorf flies to East Prussia, exchanges the package with 2 bottles of cognac, and defuses the bomb.
What?
with 2 bottles of cognac and diffuses takes a lot of time, and producing videos like this one takes a platform to fit you the link, but he didn't get caught either. In fact, he was part of a sworn circle of military resistance fighters determined to kill Hitler, and they were far from giving up. A key figure in the group was Lieutenant Colonel Klaus Schenk Graf von Stauffenberg. Over the years, he became the...
Bro, imagine you gotta say this guy's name one tap without mistake, not to insult this guy.
Colonel Klaus Schenk Graf.
And this guy's got some fucking, like, word spaghetti fucking name, dude. Like,
Tresckow and Stauffenberg were close companions, and they were always looking for a new opportunity to eliminate the Führer. They didn't have to wait for long.
oh,
Fast
this is
forward
German.
9 months.
Oh, okay.
This is Axel Freiherr von dem Busche. He's an officer, almost 2 meters tall, blonde, and has blue eyes. He truly embodies the Nazi ideal. This appearance is supposed to provide him with the perfect opportunity to kill Hitler. Von dem Busche and a group of other soldiers are to present the new Wehrmachtsuniform to Hitler at his headquarters. Von dem Busche plans to use a hidden British hand grenade to blow himself up along with the dictator. But then in Berlin, a railroad wagon is destroyed by an Allied bomb. It contained the new uniforms. No uniforms, no presentation. The meeting is postponed. By then, von dem Busche isn't an option anymore. Just 1 month earlier, he was seriously wounded. One of his legs had to be amputated. Instead, Stauffenberg now wants the 21-year-old Lieutenant Ewald Heinrich von Kleist to trade his life for Hitler's death. The young lieutenant takes his time to think about it and agrees. Von Kleist is ready to do the job and prepares. But Hitler cancels the appointment on short notice.
Okay,
On
good.
July 7th, 1944, the presentation of the new Wehrmacht uniforms finally takes place at a castle near Salzburg. This time, Major General Helmut Stief is chosen as the assassin. He too is part of the resistance group. The odds of success are extremely...
Any of these guys thought about, like, the old school, like, pull up with a fucking gun and just pull? Like, any of these guys just thought, what if, like, the bomb with the vial, with the crack, with the thing, with the... What about just fucking pull the trigger,
high.
bro?
An explosion at that distance is
Pull up on
nearly
guard.
unsurvivable. It's the perfect opportunity. Then, at the last minute, Stief hesitates and backs out. Sure, he wants to see Hitler. Stief's the perfect opportunity. Then, at the last minute, Stief hesitates and backs out. Sure, he wants to see Hitler dead, but he isn't willing to sacrifice his life for it. Yet, the group around Stauffenberg doesn't give up. They plan a new attack. This time, Stauffenberg wants to do it himself. He aims not only to kill Hitler, but also to bring down the entire Nazi regime in one coordinated strike. In the early morning of July 20th, 1944, Stauffenberg and First Lieutenant Werner von Haeften fly from Berlin to the Führer's headquarters. Stauffenberg is to report on the Eastern Front at a meeting with Hitler. It presents the
Even in the realm of morals, whatever, you can't compare this to anything else as like political violence, whatever. This is completely different. This person is inflicting deliberate and unprovoked fucking damage and hurt to others and violence, whatever, and atrocities, like deliberately. Like, this is stopping that from happening.
Perfect opportunity for Stauffenberg. He plans to arm 2 bombs in his briefcase, place it near Hitler during the meeting, and leave the room before the bombs go off. Then he plans to fly back to Berlin, where he and other resistance fighters plan to take over power after Hitler's death. At the Führer's headquarters, Stauffenberg learns that the time of the meeting has been changed. Due to a visit of the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, it is moved forward by half an hour. At around 12:15, Stauffenberg pretends to want to change his shirt.
So, but what you're saying is that having a scuffed schedule all the time, just save them every time.
Together with Haeften, he wants to secretly activate the time fuse for the bomb before the meeting begins. But they get interrupted and told to hurry not to be late for the meeting. Therefore, they can only arm one of the two explosives. So Stauffenberg doesn't pack the second one and leaves it with Heften. He then enters the meeting. He puts his briefcase down near his target at the end of the table. Hitler and the bomb are now separated by only about 1.3 meters. Stauffenberg gives his report and then immediately leaves the room, supposedly to make an important phone call. Everything is going according to plan. A few minutes later, Hitler leans over the table to further discuss war strategy, and the bomb detonates.
Too easy!
Stauffenberg watches the explosion from 200 meters away and is certain. Hitler is finally dead. He flies back to Berlin with Heften to continue Operation Valkyrie. They plan to blame the SS and the Gestapo for Hitler's death. Then they want to take power and put an end to the Nazi dictatorship. But Operation Valkyrie failed. In the meeting room, the pressure wave caused the ceiling to collapse, and there's now a gaping hole in the floor where the briefcase once stood. The loud explosion ruptured the eardrums of almost everyone present. 4 people die, almost all of the others are injured. Only 2 people got off lightly.
Because they were stacked up.
Is Adolf Hitler. The fact that Hitler leaned over the table during the explosion saved his life. He was only thrown slightly upwards by the force of the explosion. If Stauffenberg had also placed a second bomb in his briefcase, the explosion probably also would have killed Hitler. With the failed assassination attempt on
Chat, bait or mental retardation? Call it. Call it, chat, 'cause I know my call.
To end the Nazi regime also fails only a few hours later. Stauffenberg and the 3 other main plotters are shot that very night in the courtyard of the Blender block. Those are the headquarters of the General Army Office, and it was the heart of military resistance.
What?
200 are shot that very night in the courtyard of the Blender block. Those are the headquarters of the General Army Office, and it was the heart of military resistance. 200 other co-conspirators also get executed. It is the last known attempt to assassinate Hitler. On April the 30th, 1945, Hitler committed in the Führerbunker in Berlin.
So tell me that not a single person in his entire security had some old distant family, old whatever, old wifey or girlfriend that was like Jewish or whatever, and he's like, man, I gotta do it for the squad. And friendly fired, nobody, friendly fired, nobody, 0. This much time, this much dog shit, this much people around them, and nobody did anything. It's just gonna tell you now. There's a level of loyalty that you'll never see anywhere else.
Why did Hitler
Ever.
survive again and again? In old photos and video recordings, we almost always see Hitler walking around alone. That was part of his image as an invincible, untouchable dictator. But in reality, Hitler had made many precautions to protect himself. He had many highly trained bodyguards. A special security service checked all routes and locations meticulously before Hitler arrived. His whereabouts were top secret. He was always well protected when he traveled by train, car, or plane. He had his own pilot and cook. He always had his meals tasted by his personal doctor before he started eating, all to minimize the risk of an assassination. Besides these security precautions, Hitler pursued a special tactic. He allegedly once said, "Das einzige Gegenmittel ist ein unstetes Leben," which means the only antidote is an unsteady life. He often changed his routes, cancelled trips at short notice, came earlier to meetings than planned, or left events earlier than expected. We don't know if and how a successful assassination would have changed Germany's history. What would have happened if Hitler had just stayed 13 minutes longer in the beer hall in 1939? Could millions of Jews have been saved if one of almost 40 recorded attempts would have succeeded? Or would someone else in the regime simply have taken his place? We will never know.
Wasn't he the one that was very adamant about that whole mindset shit? Was that like a method that was like rampant or like spreading, but this guy was just more adamant about it or whatever? Or I think it was more his thing. I think it's what separates him and other big bads in the world, is that That was really his shit. They propelled throughout the whole thing. I'm interested. How does he have North Korea? Well, I don't think.
Min Young is 17. She lives in Hyesan, a small town in North Korea. It's located right at the Yalu River, the natural border to China. Across the ice, Min Young can see the other side. Freedom is so close, yet so far. North Korean soldiers are nearby,
It's nice
patrolling
volume.
the area.
Well, it's not. It's not loud for me.
Min Young takes a deep breath of cold air.
I need your watch
Then she makes her
expertise.
first
Should I
step
buy
off the
this
ice.
link?
Not knowing that this will
I
be the
turned
beginning
22 today
of
and
an
finished
incredible
architecture school this year.
7-year journey. North Korea is notorious for the oppression of its people and its poor human rights record. Under Kim Jong-un, it became even harder for citizens to escape. There are more fences, more guards, and since a few years, there is a new order to shoot on sight.
What?
Yet, every year, hundreds of North Koreans risk their lives to flee their country.
Hold on. Chat. How did they get Nikes? Did they
Risk their
send those
lives
over?
to flee their country. Weeks of grueling desert treks, months in detention camps, and years in hiding, all in the pursuit of freedom. Geographically, North Korea shares borders with Russia, China, and South Korea. Most North Korean refugees want to get to South Korea. There is the shared language and cultural heritage. Most importantly, South Korea actively welcomes defectors from the North with a citizenship. If you look at the map, the direct route to
Really?
South Korea might seem the easiest, but in reality, very few manage to escape through this path. In between the countries lies a demilitarized zone, and it is one of the most dangerous borders in the world. Oh Chong-song is one of the ones who managed to get through. In 2017, he made a daring escape through the DMZ. Created after the Korean War, the DMZ is only demilitarized by name. It is heavily fortified with armed guards constantly observing each other. On a quiet Monday afternoon, the tense silence of the DMZ is suddenly disturbed. Someone is trying to escape. Driving a military jeep at high speed,
Wait,
Oh
I remember
Chong-song
that.
races towards the border. Surveillance footage by the South Korean military captures the intense pursuit. He abandons his car and continues on foot. North Korean soldiers fire multiple shots, hitting him several times. But Oh Chong-song manages to cross the demarcation line. Collapsing behind a wall on the South Korean side, he endures for hours until South Korean soldiers rescue him. Escaping through the DMZ is extremely rare. Survival chances are near zero. Another rare, extremely dangerous escape route to the south is by sea.
Jeez.
Somewhere along the southeast coast, a North Korean man enters the ocean. The man is in his mid-20s and equipped with fins and a diving suit. Swimming for over 6 hours and covering more than 3 kilometers, he reaches the South Korean shore near the town of Goseong.
That's pretty good.
Despite being caught on surveillance cameras, South Korean forces only find him later, resting under a tree. He turns out to be a North Korean fisherman seeking asylum. The tides had worked in his favor. Presumably, the man had prior knowledge of the sea conditions. Without, he probably would have drowned. Defecting this way, too, is near impossible.
But why go this far though? Why doesn't it just go like right here?
Only a handful of people have succeeded through this route. Similarly, it is extremely rare that North Koreans defect to Russia. The border is heavily guarded, and the river is too deep to cross. The few people publicly known for defecting to Russia are privileged or high-ranking citizens who manage to cross with the help of of their connections. Creating 3D animations like this requires a solid under 2 rivers is through China you're learning. You're also supporting our channel. The most promising path for North Korean defectors is through China. The 2 countries are divided by 2 rivers, the Yalu and the Tumen. Some sections are shallow and waist deep. In winter, these rivers offer a rare opportunity. The water freezes solid. For those desperate enough, crossing over the ice might seem deceptively simple. Crossing is just the beginning. The real danger lies on the Chinese side, where defectors face constant threats of capture and repatriation.
Chat, can they not wear like a mega, like,
Min Young grew up in a modest home overlooking the
boots
Yalu River.
to spread the weight?
From her backyard, she can see the hazy outline of Chinese villages. Her family is relatively privileged. They don't starve. Her father, a traveling salesman, frequently crosses into China for business, while her mother works for the government. In her free time, the mother makes extra cash by trading smuggled goods from China. This is a common practice for North Koreans that live near the border. The poor economic conditions increasingly drive them to find additional income. Life changes dramatically when Min Young is 14. It's the year 1994. One day, she returns from school to find her father missing. He has been arrested on his way back from China, accused of bribery and corruption. The family suspects he was tortured during his interrogation. Months later, he dies in a hospital. Min Young, her mother, and her little brother are left alone, devastated. Disillusioned, Min Young begins questioning the contradictions she saw around her at an early age. The suffering during the famine, the lies in state propaganda, and the harsh realities of survival all build up to a pivotal point. At the age of 17, she makes the life-changing decision to leave North Korea. In under a minute, she crosses to the Chinese side, her heart pounding. Her plan is to visit relatives up north. She seeks a Chinese smuggler who lives by the river. He frequently trades goods with Min Young's mother, and she trusts him. He agrees to drive her into the sprawling city of Shenyang.
Sus.
For the first time, Min Young experiences a world vastly different from the one she had just left behind. Bright lights, bustling streets, and the abundance of food and goods leaves her overwhelmed. Weeks go by and she turns 18 years old. She wants to return to North Korea, back to her family, but then she gets a sudden phone call from her mother. Rumors of her disappearance have spread across town. People suspect she might have left the country. Coming back would be too dangerous now. Her family fears retaliation for letting Min Young escape. So Min Young's mother urges her to stay in China and live freely. Min Young remains in Shenyang. She begins working in a restaurant and learns Mandarin. She lives in constant fear of being caught and adopts several new names to evade detection. One day, 2 men enter the restaurant. They ask for her and flash their badges. It's the police. They take her away. It's over, she thinks. This is the end. At the station, they question her relentlessly and demand she complete a written Chinese test to prove her fluency. She does so, hands shaking, constantly at the verge of a panic attack. But she passes the test. It's a narrow escape. Had the officers doubted her, she would have been deported to North Korea without a doubt.
Boy, too easy.
Everything she risked, every moment of her struggle, would have been for nothing. Later, she learns that someone she trusted with her secret reported her to the authorities.
Really?
In 2002, she takes the train to Shanghai. It marks the beginning of a new chapter in her life. In the megacity, she meets a broker who provides her with a new identity. She spends her entire savings on this ID. With it, she secures a job as an interpreter at a South Korean tech company. As she builds her life in Shanghai, she saves money and falls in love with a South Korean man. Together, they hatch a plan for her to seek asylum in Seoul, South Korea. After years of hardship, Min Young boards a flight to South Korea.
Surely.
She's so close to freedom. But immigration officers doubt her story. She spends weeks in detention. She is being interrogated over and over again. Then finally, she's granted permanent residency.
Oh, too easy.
She made it. Years later, Min Young uses her savings to arrange the escape of her mother and younger brother. Today, Min Young goes by the name of Hyeonshio Lee. She is a human rights activist, speaking out for defectors and advocating for freedom in North Korea. Her journey took over a decade, but her resilience and courage led her to live a life free from fear. We linked her book in the description. Min Young's story is one of pain,
That's
loss,
pretty cool.
and perseverance, but ultimately, it is a testament to the unyielding spirit of those who refuse to live in chains.
I enjoyed the video. That was pretty good. Oh, there's more apparently.
For most North Korean refugees, escaping through China is unavoidable, but the country usually only marks the first stop. The ultimate destinations are Vietnam, Thailand, or Mongolia. All offer sanctuary and a route to asylum in South Korea. And as terrible as it sounds, many journeys to get there are much more grueling than Hyeonshio Lee's.
Why doesn't China offer that though?
Shi-yoon grew up near the Tumen River. While her story is fictional, we drew on various sources to paint a realistic picture. Her family is extremely poor. Shi-yoon
I'm just confused. People say ally, guys. What the fuck does North Korea, of all places, have to gain allies that these guys would have to leverage over, like, other people? I don't get it.
works as a vendor at an unofficial street market. The money she makes is almost entirely spent on food for the family. She once believed her government's promises that the supreme leader would provide for the people.
Yeah,
Not anymore.
I think it's more about ideology.
One day,
than,
a friend whispers
than
about a Chinese
actual.
broker who helps people cross the border for a small fee. He promises shelter, food, and even work. To Shi-yoon, it sounds like salvation. Maybe she could make enough money to provide for her family. She and her friend agree to meet him. After weeks of preparation, Shi-yoon and her friend find themselves waiting by the river on a fresh summer night. A shadowy figure emerges. It's the broker. The moon hides behind thick clouds, and the only light comes from the distant glow of Chinese towns across the river. They are ready to cross. The broker leads them through the cold water. Shi-yoon notices the absence of border guards. Usually there are at least 2 guards patrolling this part of the river. Her guess, the broker has bribed them. On the Chinese shore, a car awaits. The broker insists Shi-yoon ride ahead alone, claiming her friend will follow in a different car for safety. Numb with adrenaline, Shi-yoon hesitates, but complies. She hugs her friend, unaware it's their final goodbye. As the car drives through the dark countryside, exhaustion overtakes her. Shi-yoon falls asleep. She wakes to a nightmare. The car has stopped in a remote village. The driver tells her she's meeting her new husband. His words send chills down her spine. This has to be a joke, but no one seems to be joking. Shi-yoon was deceived. The broker has sold her to a middle-aged farmer. While transiting through China, many North Korean escapees fall into the hands of human traffickers. In the border regions, the traffickers prey on the vulnerable. Promising food and jobs, they target people living in the harshest conditions. Once across the border, hope turns to horror, especially for women. A 2019 South Korean report estimates that 60% of North Korean women in China fall victim to trafficking, many forced into sex trade. For 2 years, Shi-yoon endures isolation, abuse, and constant surveillance. It feels like a never-ending nightmare. She learns Mandarin in secret and scrapes together money by selling eggs, always planning her escape in the back of her head. One night, Shi-yoon seizes her chance. With her hidden savings and a few belongings, she escapes. The following weeks, she travels north. She has no plan, no direction, and no one to help her. After months on the run, she stumbles upon a network of defectors in the Koreatown of Beijing. They promise to help her
Yeah,
reach
that's pretty good.
Mongolia. She knows going back to North Korea would make her a traitor. This means torture and death for her and her family. She can't go back. This strange faraway place seems like the only chance at a free life, so she decides to go.
Desert.
The only thing standing in her way is the Gobi Desert. The size of Peru, it is extremely hostile to humans, freezing nights, scorching days, and no water. Shiyun joins a group of defectors and embarks on a grueling trek. Days blur into nights as they walk through sandstorms, share sips of water and little food. After days of walking with almost no rest, Shiyun's feet are bleeding. Only the thought of freedom keeps her moving. When they finally reach the Mongolian border, the group spots a few soldiers. A man from their group volunteers and approaches with a bribe. In case things go south, the others are still able to escape undetected. Shiyun nervously watches as the man from her group talks to the soldiers. Luckily, they are Mongolian and quite supportive. They guide the group to a detention center. Shiyun spends months in a refugee camp before finally being granted passage to South Korea. She is one of the few hundred that make it every year. One has to wonder how many more North Koreans would leave. If only they could.
Interesting. Well, I'm just wondering, like, what happens if China and their other allies say, I mean, we're no longer ally? Like, what these guys are gonna do? Chat, I want to watch this video, but I also want to watch this one as well. This one says what everyone gets wrong about planes. Let's see if I get it wrong about the planes.
Penis.
Most plane doors aren't locked. There are no keys, no sensors or passcodes to secure them. If someone wants to pull the lever, they can.
A man opened the emergency exit door and forced his way off the plane.
And yet, with 40 million flights each year, these doors are virtually never opened in flight. So why not?
People aren't fucking brain dead.
Sense.
Most people are, smart enough to not mess with that.
The real answer lies on
the pressure. The even if you were to, you can't push it because like you're underwater.
where planes fly.
How high do planes fly, approximately?
10,000 kilometers, or is that overshooting it?
I think that's overshooting it. I think you'd be in space.
25,000 kilometers.
That's the height of a plane.
What?
Is that way too low?
It's too much. It's too much. Too much. Bring it down.
Maybe 1,000 kilometers?
1,000 kilometers, still space.
20,000 feet, probably?
Some of them can go up to 43,000 feet.
30, 40.
38,000 feet.
Yeah. Why do they fly that high?
I don't know. Safety, I guess.
Probably to avoid collision with other aircrafts, and if there's high mountain ranges, I don't know, when storms or weather hit.
My guess
To save fuel.
is to avoid a turbulent weather.
I think that's a decent guess.
Good guess, though.
Now, it's true that one of the benefits of flying at 30,000 feet is a smoother ride. This is high in the troposphere, the layer in which most weather occurs. So there's less turbulence and fewer storms to navigate around.
But this is not the main reason that planes fly so high. The bigger reason,
Density.
of course, is money.
As you go up, the density of air decreases. And at 33,000 feet or 10 kilometers, the density of air is just a third of what it is at sea level. So flying at this altitude, the plane runs into a third of the air molecules it would closer to the ground. That means the plane can fly about 73% faster for the same amount of thrust. And as a result, you get to your destination faster, and since you spend less time in the air, you burn less fuel. It seems in a way that, climbing is wasted energy. Can you compare, the descent to the ascent? Do you essentially get the energy back as you fall down the other side?
Yeah. When we climb, we burn about 80 kilos per minute. In cruise, we burn about 40 kilos per minute. And in descent, it's maybe 10. So it's almost negligible.
Not only that, jet engines are more efficient at altitude. They work by compressing air at the intake, mixing it with fuel and igniting it, so the combustion products are ejected very fast from the exhaust nozzle. Now, this process is more efficient the colder the air is.
And at altitude, the temperature is around minus 50 degrees Celsius, which is a lot colder than an average of plus 15 here at the ground.
So flying higher means you burn less fuel for less time and avoid the weather and associated turbulence of lower altitudes.
The other reason you want to fly high is to take advantage of the jet stream tailwinds. And the company likes people who do that because you're burning less fuel, so it's less this money.
But there is a problem with flying this high. The air up there is unbreathable.
If you were suddenly teleported to the top of Mount Everest, a height lower than planes fly, you would remain conscious for only about 3 minutes. This is because in addition to density dropping with altitude, so does air pressure. Air pressure actually falls off faster because it depends on the weight of all the air above you. So at 10 kilometers, the air pressure is only a quarter of what it is at sea level. To be clear, the air is still 21% oxygen, but the partial pressure of oxygen, the pressure exerted solely by oxygen molecules, is around 5.5 kilopascals, which is a quarter of what it is on the ground. Now, at this pressure, not enough oxygen molecules can force their way into your blood in your lungs.
Differential.
To function normally, humans need an oxygen partial pressure of at least 16 kilopascals. So all the cabins of airplanes that cruise at high altitude must be pressurized. A little bit of air is continuously brought into the cabin from outside. It actually comes in from the compression stage of the jet engines. That is what maintains breathable air inside the plane.
Well, that's fucking dank.
The downside is that you are taking away a little bit of the efficiency of the engines.
Now, pressurizing the cabin required a radical redesign of aircraft.
Before pressurization, planes would fly up to 10,000 feet, or around 3 kilometers, where the partial pressure of oxygen is 15 kilopascals, just at the limit of what people can handle. On these planes, doors opened outward, and there wasn't much concern about the seal around them, since the pressure was the same on both sides. But once planes were pressurized, all the doors were changed to be the shape of a plug. They're wider on the inside than the outside. That way, the higher pressure inside the cabin pushes the door into its frame, creating an airtight seal. How airtight is a cabin?
It's pretty airtight, but not completely airtight. So you'll notice, for example, every time that someone flushes the toilet, you'll...
Chat, whenever you go close to the windows, you can kind of feel something, right? Chat, in an aircraft, chat, when you go close to the window, you feel a little air exchange.
See some of the air pressure go down. So every time that happens, you can actually see the cabin altitude jump a little bit.
And this is why plane doors and emergency exit doors don't need locks. The difference in pressure between the pressurized cabin and the low pressure exterior...
There's small miniature holes in the window, I've noticed. Like at the top and bottom, right? And you can feel something. I swear, chat, you can feel something. Try it. The next time you're in an airplane, chat, look at your window. The window has 2 sides to it, 2 layers, and there's holes on both of them. And if you put your face in it like this, right? There's a small... And you can feel it, the cold.
Air is so great that no one is strong enough to pull the door inwards.
And if someone had come up and turned that while you're mid-flight?
Nothing.
Even modern plane doors that open outward are shaped like plugs. They're just cleverly designed. The main passenger door on a Boeing 737 is both wider and taller than the frame it needs to pass through. But when you pull the lever, gates at the top and bottom fold in, reducing the height just enough. However, the sides are still too wide, so the door first has to pop inside and rotate. It's that movement inwards that is impossible at altitude. It would require a force equivalent to lifting 9,000 kilograms. And airplane cabins aren't even fully pressurized to the sea level pressure of 101.3 kilopascals.
So I could do it physically.
You may have noticed this if you take a bag of chips on a plane. It's easy to squish on the ground, but as the plane climbs, the pressure in the cabin drops and the chip bag seems to inflate like a balloon. I measured the pressure in my plane, and at cruising altitude, the pressure dropped to 77 kilopascals, meaning the partial pressure of oxygen...
Check it if you watch out. What you guys... When you fly after, and if you ate some stuff before, I feel like it's like you're burping a bunch. No?
It was only 16
Is it your insides do that, the same thing?
The minimum required for people on the plane to feel normal. This has some unintended consequences.
Do you think you fart more in a plane?
Wait, hold on.
If I did, I'd blame someone else.
I feel like no.
No. I can't let it rip, no way in the world.
Do you think you fart more in a plane than on the ground?
100%.
Yeah, see, finally somebody's honest. Nah, I rip on the plane, brother.
Cabin pressure, right?
So as you go up,
that cavity in here now expands and the air wants to go somewhere. And the quickest place it can go is south.
Bag of chips just popped by itself.
Are you sure it was the chips though?
Now, the International Space Station is pressurized to sea level pressure, 101.3 kilopascals.
So why are planes pressurized to the minimum extent possible to carry human passengers? Well, it's actually for a very good reason.
In 1988, Aloha Airlines 243 was en route from Hilo to Honolulu, Hawaii. The cabin was being pressurized as we've described, but unfortunately, this plane's fuselage had a small crack. And all of a sudden, at 24,000 feet, the crack widened and the whole roof tore off the front of the plane. Miraculously, the pilots were able to land safely and only one person was killed. The difference between the International Space Station and a plane is that the ISS was pressurized once and it stays pressurized.
But a plane experiences a pressure difference every time it climbs to cruising altitude. So the fuselage is stretched and then relaxed with every flight.
What if they fuck it up though?
And relaxed, stretched and relaxed.
The Aloha Airlines plane had the second highest 737 flight cycle count in the world, with nearly 90,000 in total. That's way more than it was designed for.
This led to fatigue, cracking, corrosion, and the eventual explosive decompression.
So planes are pressurized to the least extent possible to minimize stresses and extend the life of the plane. But even 75% of atmospheric pressure should be plenty to prevent the doors from opening. So how did this happen in May 2023?
A passenger panicked and actually managed to open an Airbus emergency exit in flight. They were on final approach then, they were quite close to the ground, so the pressure differential was very little. And because of him using all of his force, he actually managed to get the door open, which was crazy, and we didn't think that that was possible, but if you want something bad enough, I guess it is.
Wow. Was he okay?
He was okay. Everyone was okay in that case.
That was a pretty serious mishap. So I guess the next logical question is, have any other passengers inadvertently caused a mishap by, say, forgetting to put their phone on airplane mode?
When you're sitting there on the tarmac and they come on and tell you to put your phone on airplane mode, do you do it? And why do they get us to do that? What is the reason? Is there a reason?
Obviously, they wouldn't ask you to do it if it wasn't for some benefit.
I'm unfortunately a bit of a rebel and I don't follow the rules. And yep.
But you're not worried about taking the plane down?
I make sure my parents have the airplane mode on so I can have it off.
I mean, yes, I do, because I don't want it interfering with, like, the radio or whatever.
Well, I think it's the communication interference.
I feel like I've always been told.
Why, am I wrong about this?
Messes up like instruments. But honestly, they're always just told to do it. So you just gotta put your phone in airplane mode.
In 1961, the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, found that some portable FM radios could interfere with plane navigation systems since they used neighboring radio bands. And out of caution,
let me guess, they know everybody's not going to do it, right? But if everybody has their phone on night, there could be a potential thing. So the fact that some people do it is enough that it doesn't do it.
Almost all personal electronics on flights. But airlines could test any device for interference and overrule the FAA ban to allow it on board. Any device, that is, except a phone. Because another organization has jurisdiction over phones, and that's the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC. See, a phone on the ground with buildings and hills around it can usually only see 1 or 2 cell towers at the same time. But from the air, it could see 10 or 20 or more. The concern was that 200 phones traveling at 800 kilometers per hour in a plane could rapidly connect to many towers at once, overloading the infrastructure. At least, that's what the FCC thought could happen. So they banned cell phone use in flight in 1991. But there's a problem with this theory. A plane is a big metal enclosure, essentially a Faraday cage, so it should block almost all electromagnetic signals. That's why plane antennas are located on the outside. Your phone signals can only escape through the windows, which means they go horizontally out the sides of the plane, so they would have to travel long distances before reaching the ground. And the cell towers your phone is trying to connect.
Something is a Faraday cage or it's not a Faraday cage, okay? There's no in-betweener, bitch ass, okay? If there's a space where something can escape, it escapes. Okay, it's, so they're airtight or not airtight?
To?
What are you on about?
Well, they are tilted downwards, to collect all the signals from people walking around on the ground. So it's very hard to make a connection from the air unless you're flying really low. So phones could only conceivably disrupt ground networks during takeoff or landing. And the FCC never even tested if this was the case. In 2005, they went before Congress and said the rule banning 800 megahertz cell phone use in flight may not be needed in order to protect ground-based cellular networks.
As far as we know, a mobile phone has never caused an air accident. All airplane mode does for sure is save your battery life. So why are these rules still around?
I've been flying myself, and where I've gotten interference, when you're talking to a traffic control and you get that beep, 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 that signal. And that is because someone is either using their phone or the phone is on. Will one phone in an aircraft cause any problems? Probably no. Will 200 do something? Maybe. Rather than taking the chance of let's everyone update their Twitter profile at 500 feet. I'm kind of going clutch. Rather than saying that, we're saying no. Just keep them off. Enjoy the Wi-Fi up at altitude.
I'm kind of smart today, low key.
That's it.
But airplane mode might soon be a thing of the past. The EU actually no longer requires it and is pushing for airlines to provide 5G service on all EU flights.
So we may eliminate that inconvenience, but we still have to deal with airplane food. What do you think about airplane food?
I only eat the bread rolls. That's the only thing I can handle. Apart from that, everything tastes like mush.
It can either be very good or it can be very terrible.
Blandish, different consistency.
Do you think the food tastes as good in a plane as it would on the ground?
No.
No.
But bad tasting food might not be all the airline's fault. See, the air that's pumped into the cabin at altitude is really dry. The Sahara Desert, for reference, has an average relative humidity of 25%. But inside an airplane cabin, it can be as low as 5%.
This can dry out your nasal passages, hindering your sense of smell and therefore taste. The lower cabin pressure can also decrease sensations like the intensity of salt and sugar. But there is one flavor that appears to be enhanced in flight.
Peanuts.
What do you drink in an airplane? What's your drink of choice?
Apple juice.
Apple juice?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I drink
that's default.
Orange.
I drink Clamato.
Or apple juice.
Gin and tonic.
Maybe a Bloody Mary if
You're the first one today.
I love Clamato. That thing goes
hard. A German
hard.
survey of 1,000 flyers found that more than a quarter of them ordered tomato juice in flight.
Wait, yeah.
And what's really weird?
Yeah, it's Clamato. It's clam tomato juice. That's what I get.
Is that 23% of those people would never drink it on the ground.
Boom!
And would you drink Bloody Mary? Would that be like a standard drink
yeah.
at the bar, or is it a special plane drink?
I only have it on planes.
So why is everyone ordering tomato juice? Well, it could be because of the noise.
A 2015 study points to the chorda tympani, a nerve that carries taste information from the tongue to the brainstem.
Imagine, Chad.
It runs right.
Guys, imagine not knowing it. Clamato. Wait, what the fuck? I didn't type it right. Boom. Chat. This. Holy Chad. Chat. If you drink this, guys, you are a Chad. This is Chad.
Right past the eardrum, between the tiny sound-conducting bones. So loud cabin noise might unintentionally stimulate it.
This could produce an audio illusion that boosts our sense of umami, the savory taste you find in MSG, soy sauce,
Oh my God!
Well, tomatoes.
Dude! Open up a restaurant that serves Italian food with a lot of tomatoes and just blast audio in the room where and you'll have the best ever tasting tomato like pizza.
I always drink tomato juice, and I never knew why. It just felt like my plain drink. Or like spicy tomato juice.
Yeah.
Like both of those are favorites of mine.
Yeah.
So next time you're on a flight, go for something extra sweet or salty, or maybe try the tomato juice.
I feel like
Chat,
with how much
you open a restaurant, chat, called The Cabin, or The Cabin in Italian, whatever it's called, right? And you serve pizza, right? And you just blast it full of fucking noise.
our perspective of flying is still pretty distorted. So why is that?
Yeah. I know that we talk a lot about accidents and incidents and we dig into them really, really deep. And people might ask, why would you be doing this? Doesn't that just make people even more afraid of flying? But the fact is that this is one of the prime reasons why aviation is as safe as it is. The fact that we have hundreds of professionals that dig deep into these accidents means that we learn from them. So every flight becomes a little bit safer. That's actually a big reason that I started my channel, Mentor Pilot, in the first place. Because I promise you, the more you know, the safer you'll feel.
Do you think that climate change increases turbulence?
Depends on what people think, what their opinions.
It's been a bit of that in the news recently, hasn't there?
Today, the media tends to prioritize sensationalized headlines over key details. Part of why airplane mode is still such a big deal today is because of the media frenzy it started in the 1960s. So it's more important than ever to look at all sides of the story. This is why we specifically asked
Chat, with how many flights there are, the amount of accidents are nothing compared to other vehicles in other modes of transportation. Well, it baffles me that people are actually scared about flying, like because of the actual flights. Guys, what is this emote?
answer. You sit by the computer and bash the keyboard. Some numbers and symbols fly across the screen. If the bashing is intensive enough, success, you're in. It works on the movies and TV shows.
Yeah,
it
not
should
really.
work the same in real life.
Nope.
It doesn't. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many keyboards you break, you are not going to break good cybersecurity. For that, you need something.
Chat. This is the current modern day hacker. Yes, hello. Yeah, my name is Felix. I would like to speak to a representative, guys. It's just what it is. It's just what it is.
Secret. And to get that secret, you have to become part of the deepest and darkest community on the internet. Forget your dark web marketplaces and hacker forums. It's deeper than that. It's a space whose entire existence rests on its covertness, where the world's best hackers trade secrets for life-changing sums of money, where governments, mega corporations, and criminal cartels compete over snippets of information that can change the world. Welcome to the zero-day market.
Yo.
How do you get to the other side?
I feel like it kind of leaked,
Walls
to be
like
honest.
this are all over the internet. They guard the data of companies, nations, institutions, even people like you. When somebody purchases a gadget or an app, the wall is included in the price. People are paying for not getting hacked. But how do you hack things then? How do you get to the other side of that wall? Smaller walls can be scaled or broken through. That's what things like SQL injections and DDoS do. Most walls have an even easier access, just talking your way in. That's called social engineering. But for some, even the strongest brute force or the cleverest infiltration is not going to work. You need a better way in.
Yeah, you need an infiltrator, bro.
Come closer and inspect the bricks. Maybe one of them is cracked or protrudes just enough to give you a foothold. Maybe it can be moved to reveal a secret passage. Windows 10 and Mac OS X, some of the most popular operational systems out there, have around 80 million lines of code. If each line was a brick, you could build nearly 300 miles of wall with them. 300 miles, 80 million bricks. What's the chance that one of them has a flaw? In the code, a flawed brick is a bug, a vulnerability that can be used and exploited, a hole in the system you can slip through. The companies that build walls don't want flawed bricks. The income of those companies depend on shipping a secure product. They have entire departments dedicated to finding flaws in the code and pay hefty sums of money to anyone who can reveal a bug. And whenever a company finds a vulnerability in its software, it issues a patch, a fix that replaces the brick and removes the vulnerability.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the bugs are just features that are so shit that are just so fucking bad. There's like a bunch of oversight, and then they could be used maliciously.
So the importance of a security flaw is measured by how long ago it was discovered. Week-old bugs are as good as patched. 2 or 3 days old ones are probably being exploited by every wannabe hacker out there, and the patch is already on the way.
Yeah, you're wrong.
But if a company has no idea a bug exists, in other words, if it had known about a bug for 0 days, it's a whole other story. A useful 0 day is the holy grail of hacking, a secret vulnerability that can be exploited to breach the security of a device, or an app, or an entire network. Not only are you slipping right through the wall, nobody even suspects you're doing it. But good 0 days are hard to come by. To find one, you have to be better at spotting flaws than every single engineer hired by the wall building company. And even then, you may spend years staring at the code and looking for a useful flaw. Or you can look for someone who already did that. This is BugTrack.
There's also a bunch of deliberate laziness in later. That is so bad. Watch this. It's already lagging. Hold on. Watch this. I opened it, it's not launching, the game is shit. It's already lagging. Hold on. Watch this. You log in and it'll say the fucking network error, look at that. Hold on. Can I click play? The fuck? Holy shit, this is so fucking bad. Alright, whatever.
A mailing list that dates back to the early 90s, and the place you can find thousands of what used to be 0 days.
For a long
Usually it says
time,
like a problem with the fucking network.
hackers really had very little interest in money. And in the beginning, when they would find zero-day exploits, and when I say the beginning, I'm talking about mainly the 90s, they would go to the companies that had written this sloppy software, like HP, Oracle, Microsoft, Sun Microsystems, and they would say, hey, I found this bug in your software. It's a 0 day.
By the way, this is Nicole Perlarth. She's a New York Times journalist who spent years investigating the 0 day marketplace, and a lot of what we know about its history comes from her reporting. To create this story, we reached out to experts like her, who have actual hands-on experience. Finding and contacting them is a bit more difficult than it looks. The only reason we can do this is you, our viewers, and we are thankful for every token of appreciation you can give, be it a like, a subscribe, or a comment. A small gesture goes a long way. So, the early hackers would attempt to contact the companies and notify them about 0 days in their software.
And the companies, instead of looking at this as, oh, thank you for the free quality assurance, often replied with a letter from their general counsel saying, if you poke around our software again, we'll see to it that you go to prison.
So, BugTrack. You create a snappy handle, you hide behind a proxy, you take your 0 day and mail it to thousands of hackers across the world. The community gets valuable information, the company gets punished, and you get street cred. Sharing and exploring 0 days was a major part of the early hacker culture and a source of pride for many. But as the years went by, this state of things began changing into something unrecognizable. There is a wall, and you really need to get to the other side. You have money, you have connections, you have resources. All you need is a hint. You go to BugTrack and look for names. There is Mnemonics, Aleph One, Hacknisty, scores upon scores of handles, a lot of very skilled people who do a lot of work for free, but maybe some of them would like a bit of compensation. You choose one, an email, a polite, well-measured offer, and a sum, more than they earn in a year. More than the software company is willing to pay for the same bug. There are very few problems a bottomless budget can't solve. Years pass. You do the same again and again. You establish stronger connections, relationships, networks. Some of the people are reliable, others not so much. You keep the reliable ones close, the dangerous ones even closer. You are not the only one buying, and your contacts are not the only ones selling. A market begins to form and grow. Just by sending some emails, you get 0 days that can bypass any wall. And even if you have a problem finding sellers, there might be a solution to that. Middlemen emerge, 0 day brokers, companies with shady names and even shadier backgrounds willing to help you in your struggle. They can find whoever you need and conduct the transaction. They will even confirm if the merchandise works.
Chad, remember the hackers that sims up my shit and they had my my Twitter? What I was told internally is that the motherfuckers were able to get my account, but only from like a dashboard / interface, like internal, and they couldn't look at my DMs or anything. So the DMs weren't read or looked at. They could only like tweet from it, pretty much.
And vouch for
it's like a panel thing, yeah.
They're very much a matchmaking service, right? Government, right, could go and post even anonymously on Reddit or some underground forum. Hey, I want to go buy an exploit, right? But then you're dealing with some unknown party. You have issues around escrow, right? Both trust from the buyer side and trust from the seller side, and so these exploit brokers work as middlemen and matchmakers. They're holding stuff in escrow, and then they're confirming the vulnerability or holding funds in escrow, and then confirming the vulnerability actually works in many cases before even brokering the deal. And then, of course, for all those services, they take a percentage off the top.
So you buy a snippet of information from a broker or an anonymous hacker online. You confirm that the vulnerability works, and you develop an exploit, a piece of malware that can reliably turn one flawed piece of code into a safe passage through the wall. time to use it. What you are looking at now is an exploit. Not an actual one, but a reconstruction a researcher managed to piece together after scraping the remains of an attack on his phone. It's designed to infect iPhones through an invisible iMessage. The user never gets a notification, not even a blip on the screen. A snippet of code just slips in and stays completely silent. It begins working through a particular bug, a flaw that existed in Apple's software for decades, a remnant of a function that has long been discontinued. A deformed brick that once supported a wall, but no longer does. After slipping through, code takes over a small part of the phone's memory, just enough to get some minor things done. Using this memory, the message finds another, larger hole in the wall. Another 0 day through which an even more malicious code can be brought through. It's unexploitable from outside, but once you're in, you can use it. The new code is more potent, and it begins a war on the phone's native systems. A short battle rages under the fingers of the unsuspecting user until the invading code uses yet another vulnerability, one that allows it to bypass all defenses. In several seconds, the iPhone is conquered. Finally, one more vulnerability is used to gain access and take over the Safari browser. Now, the phone is at the mercy of the intruder and will report everything the owner does, sees, or hears. A string of 4 0 days, an entire attack chain tied together by some very well-written code, giving you unrestricted access to any iPhone on the planet. The researchers called this chain Operation Triangulation. A weird name for an attack that has 4 prongs, not 3, but who are we to judge? Weird naming aside, these exploits are incredibly potent and incredibly dangerous. And to get that sort of capability, you have to pay the price. Just like with almost anything on an open market, the price is a reflection of the usefulness.
I mean, you could have to do anything.
One of the few glimpses we get into the cost of attacks like Operation Triangulation is a list by Zerodium, a major broker company that actually publishes its prices. According to Zerodium, a 0 day that allows you to bypass a phone's passcode or a PIN nowadays is up to $100,000. A 0 day that allows you to access their chat application, a web browser, or an email could cost up to $500,000. 0 days that give you access to somebody.
This is what I should have waited, dude, before wiping my phone when my passcode glitched up. Because my phone blocked. I lost like a year of photos and shit like that, which was really cool to have. I'd pay $100K for that.
Email could cost up to $500,000. 0 days that give you access to somebody's.
I lost like a year of photos when my passcode glitched up. Because my phone blocked. I lost like a year of photos and shit like that, which was really cool to have. I'd pay $100K for that.
Email could cost up to $500,000. 0 days that give you access to somebody's phone without any interaction on their part can net $2 to $2.5 million. So, millions of dollars to break into a phone. And that's not even counting the salaries of the small army of hackers who wrote the exploit, making the 0 day usable. These
I don't know,
are not the
you're
amounts
back
of
up on
money you
purpose.
pay to keep tabs on your cheating fiance. The people who use these attacks aim a lot higher.
The biggest demographic of buyers, on open markets is probably governments. I mean, they have money that cyber criminals, can't touch, or can't possibly amass, even some of these larger ransomware gangs. And the value, right, that they get out of the, out of the intelligence that they gain with these 0 days is not measured in dollars and cents either.
Some 0 days are harmless. You find a mistake in the code and it might be in a system which is not widely used, or if it's even used by some niche audience, it's not that interesting.
It might be harmless now, though. I feel like, yeah, whatever.
Worth your effort to break into that system. But the systems that hackers and nation states spend a lot of time on right now are iPhone software, Android software that touches critical infrastructure, software that touches, like I said, cryptocurrency systems, wallets that could get you a lot of cash in cryptocurrency.
We may never know the actual cost of Operation Triangulation, There's only a small handful of broker companies that publish their prices, and countless more that don't. The actual cost of a zero-day, let alone an exploit, can vary a lot. A good example of that is Operation Zero, a broker that popped up just a few years ago. In September 2023, it offered the highest price for an exploit that has ever been recorded, $20 million for an attack chain. Things like Operation Triangulation could cost at least as much, or even more. All of that to give you access to a phone, a small device that tracks its users. But some targets of such attacks are bigger. Another zero-day bought for a similar price might net you an entrance to a desktop computer, or an industrial controller, or an entire network that maintains...
I mean, chat, imagine you had the fucking 0 day to the iCloud leak or whatever, right? And you ask a bunch of celebrities, brother, listen, I have your cock. It is what it is. I have it. I can post, or I can not post, okay? And we bury this. Do you want to buy this 0 day or what, bruh? I mean, personally, I'm a, you know, I'd ask to be paid because I think it's worth something. Whatever. They can do it for free.
Infrastructure of a factory, a military base, a city. Stuxnet, one of the most advanced examples of malware, used a string of 4 0 days to enter an Iranian nuclear facility and disable it. NotPetya, the most damaging cyber attack ever recorded, used one single 0 day to paralyze an entire country for several days, causing billions of dollars worth of damage to international companies that operated there. The phone of Jamal Khashoggi, a journalist murdered by the Saudi Arabian government in 2018, was monitored and tracked by the government after infecting his devices through 0 days. So far, we've been comparing a 0 day to a flaw in a wall, a brick that reveals a hidden entrance. This comparison is quite harmless, maybe a bit too harmless. A 0 day could also be compared to a weapon, or more correctly, a material from which a weapon can be made, a more powerful weapon than almost anything in the world. With the right set of 0 days, a government can wage cyber war against both competing governments and its own citizens. For a government with enough funds to buy such a collection, and enough skilled personnel to correctly exploit it, any security is no longer an obstacle. And most of these 0 days have at some point been traded on the 0 day market. They were bought, sold, and shared. This happens every day, right there under the noses of law enforcement, regulators, and corporations that can't and won't do anything to fight it.
I mean, how?
Why? How is trading 0 days even?
How the fuck do they fight this? It's just they found a piece of code that doesn't work. Is that illegal to own, to know about, to whatever? Are they obligated by law to report it to the correct people? You find a bunch of line of codes that are accessible by everybody. Say this one doesn't look right. I'll sell that to you. The fuck? Perfectly fine to sell that shit.
Legal. And why nobody treats it with at least a fraction of the seriousness.
They didn't exploit it. They found something. They found a code that doesn't look like it's working, and they sold it to somebody who will then use it. But as far as they know, all they sold is an observation.
People treat the sale of weapons of mass destruction. Well, the answer to that is a bit complicated. The 0 day market is a sprawling structure with several levels and a huge variety of players. It seems harmless on the surface.
No, selling cocaine is not fine, but selling cement to somebody is perfectly fine. If you sell cement to somebody and they use it to make cocaine, yeah, I mean, shit. But on my perspective, I just sold you some cement that I had in my backyard. Perfectly fine.
Nowadays, unlike 20 or 30 years ago, lots of companies offer bug bounty programs. They pay for any vulnerabilities found in their software, encouraging hackers to earn their income legally and make the internet more secure in the process. Some firms and researchers do the same, but independently. They look for bugs in the code of popular software and notify the vendors. Sometimes they get paid. In any case...
How's that not a good analogy? Bro, none of you guys came up with any good argument. You just say, I'm dumb. You have no arguments.
They get exposure. The corporate version of hacker street cred. This is how the white market works. The tip of the iceberg. Something most people mean when they talk about 0 days. But there is a level below that, the part of the market where companies don't have catchy names and aren't too fond of being noticed, where researchers don't advertise their findings, and a lot of them get redacted.
You can go search LinkedIn and find people that are,
Let's see it. You sell a nuke to someone because you found a nuke. I came up with a good one. How's a good analogy? It's not a nuke, brother. A nukeable place isn't a nuke, you fucking dumbass. If I find a vulnerability, if I see, hey man, I'm looking at Google Maps and I'm looking over here, there's not a lot of cell towers in this area, right? If you want to think, if I send a nuke over there, they will not detect my plane that has a nuke because there's not a lot of cell towers to communicate this information. All you're sending this person is the observation that there's not a lot of cell towers in an area. Is that a crime? Is that illegal? Not illegal. Is it a little bit iffy and weird? Yeah, probably. But I mean, they didn't do anything with the information. They just sold a piece of information.
In a story few could have foreseen, yesterday Apple was forced to lobotomize its game-changing new AI feature that summarizes the news, because it's been hallucinating world events that never actually happened. Like, did you hear Netanyahu was arrested, or Juicy Smollett's conviction was overturned, or that there's poo in your underwear? Two of those stories are not actually true, but if you have an iPhone, you might be consuming artificial misinformation. The issue became so bad that a mainstream reporter from the Washington Post said it's wildly irresponsible that Apple doesn't turn off summaries for the news app until it gets a bit better at this AI thing. Apple actually listened and is temporarily turning off news summaries, and in the future will put a disclaimer on every notification that it may contain errors. I'm dumbfounded that Apple Intelligence is not all that smart, but it's not even close to the stupidest thing going on in tech right now. And by the end of this video, you might think we're entering a singularity of stupidity. It is January 18th, 2025, and you're watching The Code Report. Apple Intelligence, not to be confused with artificial intelligence, is an incredibly innovative and perfectly balanced product. In fact, it's so good that there's now a subreddit dedicated to Apple Intelligence fails. One thing it tries to do is read your text messages and summarize them. It's rarely useful, but on the bright side, when it gets things wrong, it can be pretty hilarious. Like when you find out you have multiple emergencies like a house break-in, a fire, and a lost Fortnite match. But it also summarizes the news, and that's how I learned that tech bros are being overthrown by minority coalitions. To be fair though, Apple Intelligence is self-aware and can recognize a poorly executed feature. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for tech bro mogul Mark Zuckerberg. People freaked out last week when he said they're building AI mid-level engineers, and then a couple days ago he put his money where his mouth is and laid off the bottom 5% of low performers at Meta. And in a leaked internal memo, it said they're looking at an intense year ahead. Call me crazy, but I don't trust this guy. Disclaimer, the clip I'm about to show you is hard to watch, where Mark Zuckerberg is accused of lying about his bow hunting skills to look cool in front of Joe Rogan.
What kind of bow do you have?
Gosh, I didn't get to do it this season, but
do you know the company that makes it?
Not off the top of my head. I have a few.
You have to know.
Yeah, no, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing.
Did you get someone to coach you?
Yeah.
Who coached you?
It's basically a bunch of the guys who help run security around the ranch.
Okay.
Yeah.
As awkward as that was, maybe he's...
Chat, guys, am I done with this overanalyzed clip? I don't get it. This is like a nothing burger. So guys, it's like guys, if I went snowboarding once a year, 2 years in a row, and on the third year I don't go snowboarding, and the guy says, "Yo, do you know what kind of brand your snowboard is?" I mean, dude, you gotta know. I'm like, no, not top of my head, or whatever, not top of my head. And you're like, dude, is this your lie? Is it just trying to look cool? Well, no, really, it's you don't do it often. It is what it is. Like,
yeah.
Who coached?
What? Top of my head.
Do you know the company that makes it?
Not off the top of my head. I have a few.
You have to know.
Yeah, no, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing.
Did you get someone to coach you?
Yeah.
Who coached you?
It's basically a bunch of the guys who help run.
Guys, if you went to the gun range only twice in 5 years, chat, what gun brand was it? Was it a Smith & Wesson, chat? Was it a fucking, what was it? You probably don't remember.
On security around the ranch.
Okay.
Yeah.
As awkward as that was, maybe he's not lying, but even if he does replace all mid-level engineers with AI, you can still work for a different tech billionaire named Elon Musk who's looking for human engineers, and no degree is required, just show him the code. I'm looking for a job myself, so I sent him my code on localhost 8080. I haven't heard anything back yet, so wish me luck. Elon has had an interesting week. Over 200,000 Teslas were recalled for rear-view camera issues, but Elon's most embarrassing fail this week was that he was called out by streamer Asmongold for not being as good as he says he is at video games.
There's no way he played that
Account where Elon pays someone to really mad and took away his blue checkmark and then leaked their private DMs. It's an incredibly petty and stupid situation, so let's get back to something serious like AI. One of the big tech CEOs that I hate the least is Satya Nadella. He transformed Microsoft from a company that virtually every developer hated into a company that now no developer can avoid, with tools like VS Code, GitHub, and so on. But now they're shifting focus and formed a new division called Core AI, where the purpose is to create AI agents, which they expect to be a bigger paradigm shift than GUIs, internet servers, or cloud-native databases. Speaking of agents, Amazon has also been desperately trying to get agents implemented into its Alexa spy device, but the darn thing just keeps hallucinating. Amazon wanted to launch this thing back in October, but it's still delayed to this day. But if you made the mistake of opening Twitter recently, you'll notice there's all kinds of vague hype coming out of OpenAI around artificial superintelligence. There's like this mass delusion among tech bros that artificial superintelligence is about to come, and that's despite the fact that all of OpenAI's recent launches, like Sora and O1, have been largely buggy and disappointing. If they had anything close to an AGI, let alone an ASI, they wouldn't need all these job listings for software engineers. Artificial superintelligence will never come, and I'm willing to die on that hill because if I'm right, and if I'm wrong, we'll all be dead anyway. There is one new product that came out yesterday, listings for software engineers. Artificial superintelligence will never come, and I'm willing to die on that hill because if I'm right, and if I'm wrong, we'll all be dead anyway. There is one new product that came out yesterday though that decided not to go the AI route, and that's the Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo released a trailer for it yesterday, and while many Nintendo fans are excited, shareholders are not impressed and the stock dropped after the launch. It appears the Switch 2 is not going to be some revolutionary new product, but really just more of the same with some much needed better hardware. But another massive failure in tech this week is TikTok. If ByteDance doesn't sell TikTok by Sunday, January 19th, it'll be banned in the
Okay, I'll buy it. Whatever. Okay, I finally said it, chat. Whatever. Alright. Everybody seems to be wanting this bullshit. I'll buy it.
United States, and you could go to jail for using it. American TikTok users are already posting their heartfelt goodbye videos. What's most hilarious though is that many are learning Mandarin so they can go use the Chinese alternative app RedNote, but sadly what they're finding is that the Chinese don't even want these refugees. This has been the Code Report. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
I'm not poor. I can buy this.
Yesterday, the CEO of Sonos, Patrick Spence, who had been the fearless leader of the company for over a decade, resigned after setting the Guinness Book World Record for the most disastrous app launch of all time. During his reign, the company grew from almost nothing to a multi-billion-dollar manufacturer of wireless headphones and speakers. The hardware is so great that people are willing to shell out $500 just to listen to Carbon-Based Lifeforms in its full sonic glory. Things were going great until a few months ago when all that
Carbon-Based Lifeform is fucking insane though.
Carbon-Based Lifeform.
That is a fantastic release though.
In its full sonic glory. Things were going great until a few months ago when all that brand goodwill was flushed down the toilet because they decided to completely rewrite their mobile app in Flutter and release it in a half-baked state, which ended up costing the company hundreds of millions of dollars and the CEO his job. First day on the job, the new CEO comes in and immediately fires the chief product officer, and that comes after rumors that Sonos executives had completely ignored warnings from software engineers, which almost never ends well. It is January 15th, 2025, and you're watching the Code Report. First, I need to get something off my chest. Even though smartphones stopped making headphone jacks many years ago, I still prefer to raw dongle my headphones straight into the USB slot. One reason I like—
Dude, I still do this. Guys, I still plug in. Because I love technology, okay? And I still don't do it wireless. I have only wired. I got two on my left.
That is because there's no stupid app to download just to make the hardware work. But that's just like my opinion, man. Sonos and Patrick Spence deserve a lot of credit for commoditizing the headphone and speaker market. But one problem with the business model is that once the market's saturated, it's hard to continuously extract money from the customers. As a tech company, Sonos wanted to build a platform with software and apps that controls everything that makes sound. A good idea in theory, but the execution was terrible. They pushed an app update a few months ago that was supposed to improve improved the user experience, but instead it rendered everybody's existing products useless and removed many of the basic features that people expected. Like if you had multiple speakers connected together, you'd have to adjust the volume for each one individually instead of adjusting them all simultaneously. The internet started freaking out and it received a flood of bad reviews on the App Store. The bad reviews were so bad that it appears Apple had to step in and remove them. A few days later, the CEO then had to do the walk of shame with a YouTube apology.
We're fixing the app as fast as we can, and we're making great progress. But that's not nearly enough.
He made the smart move to keep comments turned off, and was right, the apology is not nearly enough. He lost his job, and they're only giving him $1.8 million in severance, which is a sad amount for a CEO that built a billion-dollar company. But how did this happen from a technical perspective? Well, the haters are going to say it's Flutter's fault. They should have only used native code and never messed with any cross-platform garbage. But in reality, Sonos was an early adopter of Flutter back in 2020, and the app everybody loved was also written in Flutter. It appears the bigger problem is that the new app relied more on cloud services.
Guys, if you guys say one point, you being rude, okay, chat? Guys, for what he's built, only that much, guys, imagine what you would be getting if there wasn't laws to protect you against that shit, okay? For what you've built for the company you were maybe lost your job from. It'd be in the fucking pennies. Hey, let's give it a buck. Hey, let's give it a buck. It would be in the fucking pennies. It'd probably be under $1.
Services over the network, as opposed to just connecting to the speakers locally. This might be required to build a truly smart speaker system, but when they released the new app, they failed to test and stabilize all its new features, and it resulted in all kinds of connection issues for customers. But once again, this is not an issue of incompetent engineers, but more an issue of corporate executives trying to push out a product before it's ready. Here's what a Sonos engineer said in his own words.
No vea, a Sevilla.
Luckily, though, technical issues like this will be a thing of the past because according to Mark Zuckerberg on his Joe Rogan interview, Meta expects to have AI-powered mid-level engineers by the end of 2025. That could be bad news for programmers, but Zuckerberg recently had even worse news for its army of fact-checkers. And Harry and Meghan are absolutely...
Dude, look how locked in he is, chat. Guys, I'm almost kind of jealous. Dude, this brother is so locked in. I have rarely seen that.
But Zuckerberg recently had even worse news for its army of fact